Dr. Rand Paul, what's your take on this? Look, 400,000 Americans apparently could be affected by this if they stall it anymore. You agree with Pitcher Bunning, right?
I think our country's drowning in a sea of debt, and they won't even obey their own rules. They said they were going to do pay-as-you-go 2 weeks ago, and it's only been 2 weeks, and now they're already breaking their own rules. We have the money already spent in the stimulus package. I say we take $10 billion out of the stimulus package. Let's don't go further in debt as a country.
But a lot of folks will look at this and say, look, of all the things where you want to delay and decide that you don't want to spend on, I mean, this really affects people right in the pocketbook. Hundreds of thousands of people potentially, after all the money that we've wasted and thrown away on other things. This is where we're gonna draw the line.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying we don't spend it. Neither is Senator Bunning. He's saying that let's take the money from money already allocated. The deficit spirals out of control because government says, oh, we're not going to spend any new money without, either raising taxes or lowering spending somewhere else. We're going to do pay-as-you-go. And then a week later they say, oh, this is an emergency. Well, it is important, but they could have last week had a vote. They could have a vote right now. I say, Harry Reid, come back to town and let's have a vote. But let's vote on whether or not we take the money from the stimulus package and don't add anything to the debt, or whether we have to add $10 billion in new debt.
Is this a smart move for you? I'm looking at the stats on your state. I'm looking here at 10% unemployment. How do you justify to the people in the state of Kentucky, where you want to be a senator, that they should bite their lip and not do anything about the fact that they may be losing their unemployment benefits as a result of this move by Bunning, which you're supporting?
Well, I'm not arguing that they lose their benefits. What I'm arguing is let's have a vote. Let's have a vote today. But let's have a vote today on either increasing the debt or taking the money from already existing money. They could have a vote right now today. Why aren't they doing it?
Because they're found a pincushion in the Republican Party who looks like
you're right. You're right. They're political gamesmanship. It's gamesmanship, and the Democrats love kicking Senator Bunning around. But to tell you the truth, he's taking a principled stand, and he's not opposing the benefits. He's saying, let's don't add to the debt. We are drowning as a country. Our joblessness is from the debt. So adding to the debt makes our country in worse shape. Let's don't add to the debt. Let's take the money from money we've already spent in the stimulus package.
But you know what? People won't have this problem with you because you're a fresh face, and your father has been very consistent on spending. But in Senator Bunning's case, and I think you can understand this from the left, and he's being criticized, by the way, as much from the right as he is from the left, but you can understand the folks on the left side. If you were so serious about making sure that our country didn't spend too much, then why'd you go along with the Bush tax cuts? Why'd you go along with borrowing all this money from the Chinese and the Brazilians and the Indians for tens of 20 years to have the war in Iraq, for example?
Well, you're right. I mean, the American people and the Tea Party movement don't like hypocrisy on either side of the aisle, and we did. As Republicans, we doubled the debt from $5 to $10 trillion. But I say it in every Republican picnic I go to, every Lincoln Day dinner, I say, look, we didn't do a very good job, but it's not that we just give up. It's that we try to do better and we try to regain our believability as fiscal conservatives. But it really should be pay-as-you-go. The Democrats wanted pay-as-you-go, and now they're not abiding by their own rules.
Do you agree with your father? Every time I speak to your dad, he says that one of the biggest mistakes we've made in this country is that we keep thinking we got to go around taking care of everybody else's business. We should stop this empire-building business, your dad's direct quote, and start worrying about Americans. You agree with that?
Well, I think what we have to do is we have to admit first that we're out of money, and we have to then decide where's our priority. I think what we have to do is we have to decide what is in our national security and what is not. And that's going to be difficult decisions somewhere along the road. But I think in order to balance the budget, you have to look at the entire budget, not just one segment of the budget.
Do you agree with the Democrats that health care could actually cut something like $100 million and billion dollars, pardon me, in the deficit?
No, I think when you talk about a government program, a new $1 trillion program, and you say we're going to collect all this money through waste and fraud and efficiency, I say show me the first government program that ever came in under budget. Government programs are notorious for cost overruns and for being 2 and 3 times bigger. So no, I don't believe it at all. I think the Democrats have a point, though, when they say Republicans are hypocritical who voted for the Medicare prescription drug plan, though, because that was a $1 trillion plan. So we do have to be more credible as Republicans, and we have to oppose spending. I used to always tell my Republican congressman here locally, you get an A+ for cutting my taxes, but you get a D- for cutting spending. That's the problem Republicans had, is we didn't cut spending either. But I think Senator Bunning's on the right track here. Pay as you go. Let's not borrow more money for unemployment benefits. Let's take it out of existing money that we've already spent.
So are you running as a, by the way, we're talking at Rand Paul, the son of Ron Paul. Does that bother you when I say that?
No, not at all. Not at all.
You're proud of your dad, are you?
Very much so. I think the neat thing about my dad is that his vote is not for sale or rent. People may not always agree with him, but they know that he's not for sale. And so many of our congressmen, I mean, we had a prominent senator in this health care bill that basically, I think, sold his soul for a $100 billion special privilege.
A lot of
that
them.
Was clearly unconstitutional for his state.
I'm curious about a couple of things with you. First of all, you mentioned it, so I want to stay with this topic of the lobbying. The unbelievable amounts of money that are being paid from certain industries into the campaign coffers of certain politicians, both on the left and on the right. Some industries tend to give more of their money to the Dems. Some industries, healthcare, tended to give more of their money to Republicans over the last decade or so. What do you make of that, and how are you going to deal with that if you get elected?
Well, I think I have a cure for it, actually, that'll pass constitutional muster. What I would do is on every federal contract, I would have a clause. And it says if you accept this clause, you voluntarily give up the right to lobby, you voluntarily give up the right to give PAC contributions, and I'd have the top 20 officers sign it also and individually, voluntarily give up their right to give contributions.
What do you mean? I don't understand. You mean, hold on. Are you talking about the businesses that would have to give it up?
Because I'm talking about people who do business with the federal government. For example, we have big business that get billion-dollar no-bid contracts with the government. They take their first $1 million and they buy a lobbyist. The lobbyist then goes and asks for more money. It's a vicious cycle. So I would say if you want to do business with the federal government, what I would say is let's have a clause in the contract, and it's a voluntary clause. You don't have to do business with the government, but if you do, then you give up certain things. We have that already. For example, if you voluntarily join the military, you give up the right to certain types of campaigning. If you voluntarily become a federal employee, the Hatch Act gives up certain campaigning.
Interestingly enough, I mean, the king of this was Dick Cheney. And as vice president, he made sure there were tons of no-bid contracts where people were not allowed to bid, and yet those that did bid were defense contractors, some of which had associations with him in the past, and still do in some cases. Why weren't Republicans appalled about that type of exercise, many people ask?
Well, I think there needs to be more consistency. And I do tell people I think the most important thing the federal government does is national defense, but that doesn't mean all spending is for national defense just because it has a military name associated with it. And I think even some conservatives realize this too. John McCain will vote against some of the procurements in the military that he thinks is wasteful. So I think you can be pro-national defense and also be for cutting out some of the waste, fraud, and spending throughout our budget. But you talk about whether we pay things overseas. For example, the workers' benefits for unemployment are about $10 billion. We give $26 billion in foreign aid to countries. There's plenty of money that we could find in other parts of the budget for our workers. Let's don't be sending it to other workers overseas.
By the way, your opponent is Trey Grayson. He's also in favor of what Bunning is doing, and we want to let his side know that we'd be more than happy to have him on and have this conversation. Finally, are you a true Republican, or do you lean more as a libertarian?
Well, I registered as a Republican when I was 18. I voted in every Republican primary. In fact, I attended the 1976 Republican convention.
But do you lean more as a libertarian?
I like the Republican platform. If you look at the Republican platform, it's actually good. It's very fiscally conservative. It's very much for limited government. things like the bank bailout are directly contrary to our platform. So I think our platform, if we followed it, would be consistently fiscally conservative. I think Republicans aren't always fiscally conservative, mainly because we don't follow our platform.
Rand Paul, Dr. Rand Paul, I should say, Daddy's son.
Thanks for having me.
And he's running for the Senate seat left behind by the controversial Jim Bunning in Kentucky. Thank you, sir, taking time to talk to us.
Thank you.